All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the January meeting of the Symmes Township Zoning Commission. If everyone would please join me in standing and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance
to the flag
The United States of America,
and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty
and
justice
justice
for all. Good evening, everyone, and hopefully everyone's had a healthy and prosperous start to the new year. Janet, can you give us roll call, please?
Ms. Bucco,
here.
Mr. Etter, Mr. Flynn,
I know he's here.
Here.
Mr. Kessler,
Here.
Mr. Singular,
Here.
Mr. Reichman.
Here.
All right, with the start of the new year, that always starts off with the transitioning of the digital gavel. And I guess as my last act as president for this past session, I'd like to have two motions with respect to our new chairperson and vice chairperson. In that regard, can I get a motion from someone to elect Cynthia Bucco as our new chairperson?
I'll make a motion to elect Cynthia Bucco as the new chairperson.
And I'll second that motion.
Mr. Flynn,
Looks like George is on mute.
oh, he's frozen too.
Yeah, he's frozen.
There we go. George, can you hear us?
Okay, Mr. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Singular,
Yes.
Mr. Reichman,
Yes.
Ms. Bucco,
Yes.
and I see George is still frozen.
All right. If I can get a motion to elect George Flynn as vice chairperson.
I'll make a motion to elect George Flynn as the vice chair.
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Bucco,
Yes.
Mr. Flynn, still frozen. Mr. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Singular,
Yes.
Mr. Reichman.
Yes.
All right. In that regard, welcome aboard, and I will transition the digital gavel, as I call it, over to Cynthia for the balance of the meeting.
Okay, I guess thank you, Greg. I guess the first item on the agenda or item on our agenda is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I will second that motion.
Mr. Singular,
Yes.
Mr. Reichman,
Yes.
Ms. Bucco,
Yes.
Mr. Flynn,
Yes. So, Madam Chairperson, if you want to let me say something real quick. George, did you hear those two motions to elect the president and vice president?
I did not. And then, you know, my screen went blank. So it's probably a transmission on my end, I guess, but I did not hear anything.
Okay.
So,
Jana, just mark George down as abstained.
okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Does he know he's vice president?
He's vice president, George.
that what happens. That what happens when you
Since you couldn't hear us, we should have made you chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Brian. I guess the next item on the agenda is our last meeting was October 21st of 2020. You should have received a draft of the minutes, and I guess I did notice one thing on there that I thought was worth mentioning, but as soon as I bring that up, unless somebody has anything else, I'll ask for a motion to approve them. I don't know if anybody else has anything or not. On page 1 of the minutes, and maybe I misunderstood this, it's the third paragraph up from the bottom that starts with Mr. Snyder stated that no, they can. It says in the last couple of sentences they have 4 more spaces than are required. The minimum spaces required to have is 126, and they have 150. Is that supposed to be 130? The math doesn't work.
No, those are the numbers. It is 126 that's required, and they had 150.
Why does it say they have 4 more spaces than they're required to have? Should it be 24?
Oh, I think it just means they have more spaces than they're required to have. I think the 4 should be removed. I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, those 3 sentences together, the math, or 2 sentences, the math doesn't work. So whatever, if it's that they just have more and they've got 120, or they require 126 and they've got 150, I just thought that was worth clarifying.
Yeah. Okay. So they have 4. I'm sorry. They have more spaces than they're required, so the 4 should be stricken.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Does anybody else have any comments? If that's, if not, then can I get a motion to approve the minutes from October as amended?
I motion that we approve the amendment, the minutes as amended.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Reichman,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Singular,
Yes.
Mr. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Flynn,
Yes.
Ms. Bucco.
Yes. Okay, we'll open the public portion of the hearing. Our first and only case is Symmes number 96-1, McCabe's-Thornton, to review a final development plan modification approval for modification of the streetscape area along Fields Erdel Road to allow construction of parking and driveway access to a proposed Thornton's convenience store and gas station. I guess first we'll hear from the applicant. If you could state your name and address and who you're with, that would be great.
Do you want me to go through the staff report before that?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. Yeah, I guess we'll hear from staff first.
I think I can answer a lot of
Sorry, applicant.
questions. I might be able to shorten up what.
All right, makes it easier on me.
Yeah, that's right. And Rob, do I have the ability to share my screen, or do I have to be a host for that? Okay, perfect. I guess I should have just tried it. Sorry. Yep, there we go. Okay. So this is the property here, outlined in red. The zone line it actually follows this property line, even though it looks like it doesn't. But this triangular piece of property here is zone EE, planned retail. And across the street is EE. The other corner is EE, and then these 2 corners of the Fields Erdel and Montgomery Road intersection are zone E retail. There's an existing strip center here, and access into the McCabe Center, which provides access to the rest of this kind of strip retail big box development that continues down Fields Erdel Road. Wow. Okay. So this all was rezoned as part of one big rezoning for the expansion of the McCabe Center. There were several zone changes. This original center was in the e-retail part of the property. There was a separate zone change for a small additional property that added a little bit of addition. And then there was a larger, big zone change that included the rest of the center later. And as part of that later zone change, the property actually went up here, and they dedicated right of way as part of that zone change for the relocation of Fields Erdel Road when they made it bend here to come across Montgomery in this way. That was dedicated as part of the zone change. And what they were left with was this small sliver of property here that obviously didn't have a plan for anything specific and just became part of the streetscape buffer of Fields Erdel Road. This is a separate lot here, which was already zoned e-retail and already had the strip center on it. So it wasn't involved in that zone change at all. However, the property owner is currently looking to allow this entire portion of their property to be redeveloped for a Thornton's gas station. So the vast majority of that development, including almost everything that you see on the large packet of information that you received, is in the e-retail part of the property and is not something that is being considered by the commission tonight. The zoning commission does not have authority for anything in the E property. It's only the planned retail district for final development plan modification that this commission is considering. So just this sliver here. And you can see on the plans that they submitted, and I apologize to the applicant, this is an old, very old version of what they submitted. It doesn't look very much different, so I'm hoping it's pretty much the same. But this is not the most recent. I only brought this up because I believe that the parking and access is the same in this little sliver of the property. So this is the triangle that I was referring to, that's zone double E. So the only thing that's happening in the double E portion that would require the zoning commission's approval for this final development plan modification would be to allow these 4 parking spaces in this small portion of the driveway to be located within the double E. In reviewing the original approval, there were no conditions about this triangle being maintained as open space. There were no restrictions against parking or access in this area. In fact, the original zone change had contemplated allowing outlots on Fields Erdel Road, which ended up not being constructed. But the idea of having an outlot on Fields Erdel Road was part of the intent of the original approval. So I don't think there's an issue with the intent of the PUD to allow this. There's no issue at all with the conditions of the original approval. And so we're just looking at this for zoning compliance. They do provide the 20-foot setback for parking spaces along the street, which the code requires. And they are on a separate sheet that you have in your packet, proposing the required streetscape landscaping in this area. There's no other structures or signage that would be in this small portion of the property. And so staff found no issues with either compliance with the original resolution of approval for the zone change or with the Symmes Township zoning resolution. And therefore we have no issues with the request. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Does anybody have questions on this committee?
So just to be clear, Brian, this is Jeff. The only thing that we're going to be voting on approving is the red area.
Yes.
And if we voted not to approve it for whatever reason, what would that do? It seems like it's rather integral to the totality of their project.
It may be. I don't know if they would go forward with the project without the approval of this, but this driveway is already here. It would prevent them from having this driveway extend around this, or they would have to shrink the building or the gas station pumps, and they would have to get rid of these 4 parking spaces, which I don't think they need to comply with zoning. But if you denied it, you would basically be saying that this whole triangular area, with the exception of the existing driveway, has to stay green. But it wouldn't prevent them from building on the rest of the retail property.
Mm-hmm. So as we go through this project tonight, are we able to address issues other than in the red zone? Can we talk about signage or green space outside of that area?
No, you have no authority to comment or make restrictions or really even review the rest of the development. It's with the exception of any variances that they need. And if they do need variances for things like signage, they will be applying to the Symmes Township Board of Zoning Appeals, who has authority over the e-retail part of the property. But the rest of the development's permitted as of right. If they didn't need variances, they could come in and get a permit for the rest of this tomorrow.
And sorry, I'm usurping all the time here, but I assume that there aren't any kind of either township or county requirements that haven't been addressed vis-a-vis either environmental review or sewer review or anything like that that may be implicated in putting a gas station in?
those will all have to be done as part of the building permit for the construction of the gas station at the time when they're going through the building permit review.
Mm-hmm. And the same thing regarding if they intend to have liquor or tobacco licenses, that all goes through the county and the state authorities.
Correct. Liquor and tobacco licenses are not part of zoning review. That's completely handled by the state.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee members? That being the case, let's hear from the applicants. Again, if you could state your name and address and who you represent, that would be great.
Certainly. Thank you for hearing our case this evening. My name is Todd Smoots. I'm the project manager with Thornton's, and we are officed at 2600 James Thornton Way in Louisville, Kentucky. Let's see if I could share my screen here. Thank you, Mr. Snyder, for going through most of that for me and doing the heavy lifting there. I wanted to show what was originally approved here and orient you to this EE zone sliver here with the 11 parking stalls that were shown along the roadway there. And on our current site plan, I couldn't see the one that you put up, Mr. Snyder, so I'll show the latest that I have here. And just so that you know, we did take your comments seriously on the dumpster enclosure, and we moved it to the other side so it wouldn't obstruct the view coming from off of Fields Earl Road there. So we shifted that location based on your comment there. This is just to orient you here. This is the EE zone sliver. It's along Fields Earl Road, and we're showing 4 parking stalls here. So originally, Mr. Tepe was orienting me to the original approvals of the site and showed me the utility plan from the development that I just brought up, and that there were 11 parking stalls on that originally. So we're proposing to put less there, and we do need to pave in this area because we want to have access along both sides of our building. This is kind of a unique layout for us here, and worked extensively with Jeff Tepe on it and my consultants. Because of the access here, you have to, primary access will really be off of Fields Earl Road going into what is the rear of the store. And in order to be able to navigate appropriately around the store and then also maintain the shared parking that we have with the center, we need to pave this area here that crosses over into the EE zone sliver there. That's why we're here tonight. We wanted to have access around both sides of the store. It'll function much better and flow much better, and the cars will be able to navigate around the store appropriately when they're fueling and then they're returning to go on their way there. Did you have any questions on the application I could answer for you?
Todd, I have a question. Can you talk a little bit about the landscaping that's going to go into that little wedge?
Yeah, certainly. We've done preliminary engineering already, and we have buffer landscaping shown all the way along Fields Earl Road here, obscuring the 4 parking stalls area and running the extent of the whole property here as well, and just running around, extending around the corner here. There's going to be sod that'll be placed in this area here between that landscape buffer and the parking stalls here, and a couple shade trees here. Will be placed along the frontage there of the road.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's significantly more landscaping than is there now. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I don't think there's much there right now. I think it's just mostly grass.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
With respect to that sliver, is that relatively flat, or do you plan to berm that up at all?
It's relatively flat, sir, and we'll keep it at the existing grade there, and we'll just be planning on putting in the landscape buffer there for any screening to the roadway.
Will that also include irrigation?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we irrigate all the landscape beddings around our C-stores.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, hi again, this is Jeff Reichman. So I'll ask you the same question that I asked Brian, which is if we were to not approve the revisions to the zoning as you've requested, what would that do to the overall idea, your concept of developing this?
We would have some great difficulty, frankly. Like I was saying before, we went through several iterations of this plan. It's very important to our business team to have access around both sides of the building here. And we worked extensively with Mr. Tepe to accomplish that and also to maintain all the shared parking over here. So we have some limited space here to work with. And that's why we're requesting this pavement here on this side of the building. And I'm not certain that we would continue forward. We did have an option previously where we looked at not paving this area, and our business group didn't look favorably upon that. So that's why we came back with this version.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the committee? Thank you, Todd.
Welcome.
Is there anybody from the public? Jana, do you know if there's anybody else that are
No, I don't.
is okay? Well, I guess if that's the case, we'll close the public portion and any conversation or discussion amongst the committee members.
I mean, I think it's a nice looking plan. You know, it certainly qualifies, and our purview is only that corner section, as Brian identified. And from my perspective, I think it works.
Anyone else?
I think it works too, and I would agree. I would agree with George's statement that as far as gas stations go, I think that this is a nice looking gas station, although it's not part of our purview. You know, the thing that probably most concerned me twofold were the pedestal sign that is on the property, which is inconsistent with the signage up and down either Fields Erdel or Montgomery Road. You know, I also though wonder about, you know, just how many convenience stores and gas stations can exist in that general area, and you know, and the fact that there's a UDF right across the street, and there's a Speedway right down the street, and a Kroger, you know, all within that same block. It, you know, it begs the question of, you know, is this really needed?
Any other? I was
And
just
as you
saying,
know,
I think it's an improvement over what's there now, at least in terms of the landscaping along the edge.
Most definitely.
Agree.
Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay, then could I get a motion from someone on the committee?
I'll motion to approve Symmes case 96-1, modification of the approved streetscape area along Fields Erdel Road to allow construction of parking and driveway access for a proposed Thornton's convenience store and gas station.
I will second that motion.
Ms. Pugo,
Yes.
Mr. Flynn,
Yes.
Mr. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Singular,
Yes.
and Mr. Reichman.
Yes.
Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, committee members.
You're welcome. We look forward to seeing a nice landscape around that corner.
As do we.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
We'll move on to old business if there is any, Jana.
No old business.
How about new business?
Brian, we don't have a meeting, do we?
No, we do not. No cases for next month.
Okay. Are there any administrative matters to discuss?
No, none.
Okay.
The zone text amendments that were came through the commission were approved by the township trustees and have gone into effect. So they are currently effective. The zoning code on our website has been updated to reflect the changes. And I believe, Jana, I'm not sure if you guys put it on your website also.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's up on the township's website too then.
You know what? I looked at the township zoning ordinances earlier today, and it didn't show any updates, Jana. So,
Okay, I'll tell Luann.
okay,
On the Symmes Township website you looked?
correct.
It should be the first page or the second page says with revisions
Right,
effective January 8th, 2021. So that's when you
correct.
see that, you'll know that's the updated one in the
Right.
future.
Okay.
And Jana, I know it's probably killing way more trees than are necessary, but I think it would be helpful for all of us zoning commissioners to have the full text of the zoning rules.
Well, do you want to do that electronically, Jeff?
That would be fine too. In fact, that's probably easier, George. Yeah.
Oh, great. Can we make that happen, Jana?
Yeah, I'll see if Kim has it.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you. Any other administrative matters?
No.
Okay, if that's the case, can I get a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Who seconded it?
That's Greg.
It was Greg.
I will, but I think it was Jeff.
Oh,
I'm sorry, James.
was it you, George?
I think Jim's seconded.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jim?
George and I both did it at the same time.
I'll give it to Jim. Mr. Flynn,
Yes.
Mr. Kessler,
Yes.
Mr. Singular,
Yes.
Mr. Reichman,
Yes.
Ms. Bucco.
Yes.
All right. See you guys soon.
Thank you,
Have a good
everyone.
evening.
Have a good
Good to see
evening.
everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.